We've got serious injuries coming off of week 5. What can dynasty managers do now? We're talking about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Dynasty.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. I'm your host, Ryan McDowell. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Joining me, as always, is former NFL scout Matt Williamson. Find Matt on Twitter at WilliamsonNFL. Matt, we've had injuries every single week this year, of course, as always, but week 5 really stings. Two of the top players, top incoming rookies that we've been talking about, of course, I'm referring to Anthony Richardson and Devon Achane. Looks like both of those guys are going to miss some time, possibly even land on the injured reserve list. And the 101, Justin Jefferson, is on the IR now as well. Each of those guys could miss the next 4 weeks and maybe even more. We're going to talk about those guys today and what do dynasty managers do now, because no matter what's on the waiver wire, you're not replacing Richardson, Jefferson, or Achane's production.
No, I mean, they're big time guys that are productive, and stock is, I was going to say, soaring on the rookies, but at least they are on the field when Richardson's on the field. We know Jefferson's probably the best, is the best asset in all of Dynasty. Doesn't sound like he's going to miss a super long stretch, but with Minnesota, more of an NFL than fantasy thing. I mean, the way their season's going, the way their roster's constructed, Cousins' contract, is this a straw that kind of breaks the camel's back in terms of, how they view their roster and turning guys into draft picks,
Well, we'll start with Jefferson, the Vikings, and the story there, because that's exactly what I wanted to ask you about. Was this is the team that's struggling? They have not played up to expectations, certainly, and you look at they keep hearing the numbers quoted from last year. I believe they were 11-0 in one-score games, and they're like 0-3, 0-4 now. So that just, of course, shows how the NFL can play out. But I mean, we've heard Kirk Cousins trade talk, and that's probably nothing more than speculation and kind of connecting the dots at this point. But he's in the final year of his deal. If that were to happen, there's multiple teams that need some quarterback help that do look at themselves as contenders. Of course, we're talking mainly about the New York Jets. But why would Jefferson even hurry back in 4 weeks, right? He hasn't gotten that new contract extension yet. Maybe this 4 weeks turns into 8 or 12 or the season. I mean, you hate to say those things about our number one guy, but that's kind of the reality right now.
Yeah, I actually hadn't thought of that part of the angle, but I think you're very right, and that we should be concerned. I don't think any of us are predicting that at this point.
Right.
Maybe they win a couple games while he's gone. He's back in a month and all systems go. Who knows? But they are a very analytically driven front office, and they realize that they outkicked their coverage last year. I mean, you can just tell that their offseason moves indicated that. They know that they're not a contender.
Yeah. Well, we are talking waiver wire targets today, and of course, the top waiver wire target here in this situation is KJ Osborne. And Matt, I know you're really hesitant about Jordan Addison as far as a player that you're trusting, but he's going to get a big opportunity. KJ Osborne going to get a big opportunity as well. Osborne has had, you look at last year, and he had 5 games as a wide receiver 2 or better, so a top 24 fantasy scorer. And that was with Jefferson in the lineup. Of course, Thielen was in and out. That was before the Hawkinson deal for the most part. But I do think KJ Osborne is a player that you can grab from the waiver wire. Again, if you're in one of those leagues with 22 man rosters. He's maybe out there. And he can go right into your starting lineup. I think, of course, Addison, Hawkinson going to be the big beneficiaries. But when you're talking waiver wire, KJ Osborne is the guy to target here.
100%. And I haven't checked in a week or two, but I assume it's still true that Osborne was actually out snapping Addison for much of the year. And if it's not true, it's still very, very close. I know that. He's playing a lot. He's going to get more opportunities. His life will get a little more difficult, but I guess he is a borderline fantasy starter at this point.
Well, we'll see how the usage plays out. I could certainly see the Vikings treating Jordan Addison as their top option or their wide receiver one. Maybe he slides into that Jefferson role. Opposing defenses could do the same thing, and Osborne's role essentially looks the same, except maybe propped up. Given that the best receiver in the league is not out there right now. So KJ Osborne, definitely a wide receiver target, maybe the top target, but these other injuries that we want to talk about got maybe muddy those waters. Let's move over to Miami. Matt, we got word, I guess late Monday that the rookie Devon Achane was dealing with a knee injury. Of course, the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel didn't want to give up too much information about that. And then Tuesday morning, we get the report that Achane will miss multiple weeks, could possibly land on injured reserve, and kind of a coinciding report. Jeff Wilson's ready to come off the injured reserve. He's going to be back, it looks like, for the Dolphins just in time. So again, Jeff Wilson, the obvious waiver wire target if he is out there in your league. Raheem Mostert certainly is not. We'll see Wilson if he's ready to go. Honestly, at this point, I want any healthy member of that Miami backfield, get him on my roster. If we're talking about Savon Ahmed, they probably make some kind of move with the Achane injury. Maybe it's bringing back a guy like Myles Gaskin or something like that. But if you're a healthy Dolphins running back, I want you on my roster. That goes back to what you said a couple of years ago when McDaniel took that job.
Yeah, and I don't love Wilson, but I don't care. He's perfect for the system. I mean, former Niner as well. He's not nearly as electric or as explosive as Achane. I mean, that's goes without saying, but opportunities there. Mostert gets a bump. Wilson, I think, is now a fantasy starter. I mean, if he's on the waiver wire and you can put him right in your lineup, we know what kind of value that has. So I'm with you. I mean, it's unfortunate, but hopefully Achane's only out 2-3 weeks.
Well, we saw Achane rise up the ranks very quickly. We talked about it last week in our ADP report, and we're gonna give some more ADP information on tomorrow's show as well. But Achane's in that RB1 range. I believe he was the last player in the third round, based on the ADP we discussed last week. So he was obviously a player that was quickly rising, and even after his past couple of games. Some people were talking about him as the Dynasty RB1, even ahead of Bijan Robinson, or the Dynasty RB2 right behind Bijan. How fickle are we going to be in Dynasty circles here? Because we know about the size concerns. You can say, well, who's to say whether that led to this injury or if it's just just kind of a natural consequence, I guess. How far does this hurt, or how much does this hurt Achane as far as his dynasty value? Could you see him falling right back down, not to where he was necessarily, but could you see him losing a lot of value due to this injury and the long-term concerns about a knee injury?
I guess if he were to go on IR, and this would, imply that he's at, going to be 4+ weeks, that's not a tweak or a strain or whatever word they use, then I think that would be a big indicator. However, I mean, I think that the last thing you wanted to hear with this guy was injury, because immediately everyone's just going to say, well, he's small, he can't hold up, he's never going to hold up, blah, 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 But I think maybe he falls around. I mean, not a lot.
Right. That's fair. I think there's definitely going to be a lot of I told you so's with this Devon Achane injury. And that's not the game we want to play. He is an exciting young player to watch and to cheer for, and that's even more true if you've got him on your fantasy team. So we're certainly hoping he gets back on the field very soon, and this is as minor of an injury as it can be. Another player dealing with injuries is Anthony Richardson, another rookie dealing with injuries. We're going to talk about him and the Colts situation. We'll do that next.
So I think I told you this story last week or so, but my son was going to the Steeler Monday night game, and my best buddies got him tickets, and they had this massive miscommunication that was really my son's fault. Of course, he's on the subway going to downtown Pittsburgh and realizes he never claimed the tickets. And, he's got his jersey on, he's ready to roll. And I wasn't thrilled with him, but I'm like, all right, I did this before with Guns N' Roses. Download the Game Time app and get yourself 2 tickets. You got a buddy with you, blah, blah, blah. And before you know it, he's like, thanks, Dad. That worked out unbelievably well. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets for your next big event. Game Time is fast and easy way to buy for all sports, music, as we both did, comedy, theater near you, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. That's easy to find and buy tickets of every kind you're looking for. My son got a big kick out of the view from your seats before you bought them. He's like, oh, these are great. And worked out really, really well. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. All in prices show your total up front, so you're getting a great deal without the hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds, really, with just 2 taps. Very, very easy stuff. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. We took advantage of that. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off today. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Talking week 5 Dynasty waiver wire targets. Unfortunate injuries have led us to targeting Jeff Wilson and KJ Osborne. I think those are probably the top 2 players to look for on your waiver wire. Mm-hmm. But let's move over to the quarterback situation, Matt, because once again, Anthony Richardson has suffered an injury. He's played 4 games now in the NFL, and he has left 3 of those games with injury. And this is the most serious of those. Again, sounds like he could land on the injured reserve list, which means he would miss at least 4 games and possibly more. It's an AC joint injury. Certainly doesn't sound season ending. But before we talk about Gardner Minshew and what the Colts are going to do now, what's your level of concern with Richardson as a dynasty asset now with multiple injuries in the first month of his career?
So I was listening to Robert Mays' podcast with Nate Tice the other day, and they were talking about it's not uncommon for rookies, young guys to come in the league as just wild stallions. And they used, Josh Allen as a comparison. He's the obvious one. I think Jalen Hurts had some of these issues. Even Joe Burrow, who's not the athlete those guys are, that, hey, you don't have to score a touchdown on every play. You don't have to be Superman. And some of these guys, especially when they're the best athletes on the field, like an Allen or Richardson, have a hard time learning that. But it's also not an uncommon lesson, is my point. So from our perspective, I would put offers in left and right for him. I mean, if you own him, you're starting him and you're like, oh, man, because he leaves mid-game and then you lose your week. I mean, it's a terrible feeling. But, man, he is so promising. I think it's like your last chance to, put an offer in for the guy.
I totally agree. I thought you might go the other way there, but I'm totally with you. There might even be more of these types of injuries, but if this is a buy low opportunity, and honestly, I don't really think it is. I mean, I think if you drafted him second or third in your super flex league, or you drafted him, in the second round, which seems crazy of a single quarterback league, you've struck oil here. You've got to hang on to Richardson, even with these injuries. Let's move over to Gardner Minshew. Did get the one start this year when Richardson was out with the concussion, and played okay. I thought he looked better this past Sunday when he came in the game for Richardson, and played pretty well there. What do you think of Minshew? Is he an option in those super flex leagues for the next month or so?
Yeah, I think he's efficient. I think that's
Yeah.
a really well coached, especially on offense, football team that is paying off dividends already from the head coach coming over. The line's playing better. Who knows what Jonathan Taylor will add to the offense? That was a strange situation, but
Yes.
This isn't what you asked, but the Josh Downses of the world aren't suffering at all. The other guys are doing just fine. The offense is moving,
Right. As good as Richardson has been from a fantasy standpoint, you look at Minshew and think he's got to be considered one of the best backups in the league, maybe the best backup in the league, because you still trust him at least to get Pittman and Downs and get the guys the ball, even if you don't necessarily want to plug him into your lineup as that QB2. He's going to be a target for me in those super flex leagues for sure. Couple other quarterbacks, Bailey Zappi. We saw him come into the game again for Mac Jones, who's just been terrible, honestly. Zappi's not been really any better, but what a rough spot in New England. And then we saw Tyrod Taylor as well. Daniel Jones left the game with a neck injury and was quickly ruled out. That was kind of a scary situation, but Brian Daboll sounds optimistic that Jones will be able to go in week 6. So Tyrod would be more of a precautionary ad. Anything on Zappi, Tyrod, Daniel Jones, Mac Jones, really, really ugly right now.
I think the Patriots are broken, and it's partially Mac Jones's fault for sure, but we can't blame coordinators anymore. They have no team speed. The line's a mess. The defense isn't bailing them out. I don't think I want anything to do with that situation if I can help it. And let's not forget, they cut Bailey Zappi. They can't be that high on him. Nobody wanted him, and so they brought him back. And with the Giants, Tyrod should be on your bench as a handcuff type of situation, but their blocking is just so bad. If Jones does play, he's going to take a beating again. He gets sacked 6 times every game.
Yeah. Yeah, Tyrod, another one of the better backups in the league. So if he does play, you could see using him in a desperation superflex situation. Matt, we got a few more running backs to talk about, a couple wide receivers as far as waiver wire targets as well. We'll continue that conversation next.
Folks, snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is unbelievably easy to use. There's all kinds of betting options, spreads, player props, over-unders, way more. You can get creative with it. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Football season is here, and Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On NFL Kickoff Live. Each Friday, Locked On will go live at 2 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Host Tanitra Batiste, Jarvis Davis, and Kyle Krabs will break down every game on the NFL slate to get you ready for your team's matchup, your fantasy lineups, your betting angles, and more. Plus, get the in-depth local analysis from our stable of NFL hosts around the country who know these teams better than anyone else. Find Locked On NFL Kickoff Live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern on any Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Matt, we talked about the injuries to Richardson, to Achane, and to Justin Jefferson, another player who suffered an injury that looks like it could be a multiple week issue is James Conner in Arizona.
Yeah.
He is reportedly also set to miss multiple weeks with a knee injury. And unfortunately, he's another one of these players that has a lengthy injury history. He misses quite a bit of time. On Sunday, we saw Emery DeMercado, the undrafted rookie running back, come in and kind of take over for Connor when he left the game. And DeMercado had a solid game. I believe he had about 45 yards on 10 rush attempts, did get the touchdown there. So if you had him stashed already, maybe you're a little bit ahead of the pack here. Keontae Ingram, of course, the other name to know in that backfield. This Cardinals team has been really interesting.
Yeah.
In the preseason, we thought it was going to be one to avoid no matter what. We want no Cardinals, and they've just played harder and played better than anybody expected. I would have said if James Conner is out, I don't want any of these backups. I think my tune might be changing a little bit on that. Again, especially due to the overall state of the running back position. Any thoughts on DeMercado, Ingram, or Arizona in general?
Yeah, more Arizona in general. I don't know a ton about DeMercado, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I've scouted this guy thoroughly or anything like that, but they have been a highly functional offense. And, you know, Josh Dobbs is playing well. Their receivers are adequate. I mean, if not better, the line's holding up. My worry with the Cardinals as a team, but, you know, this especially and particularly the offense, since what we're talking about, is as the season goes on and the war of attrition sets in and you have a couple dings and a couple guys missing time, that I think their depth is going to really bring them back down to a bottom five type of team.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just a short-lived situation. And even the games they play really well for 50 minutes of it and can't quite hold up. I kind of think that's how the season's going to go.
Yeah, good point. Deontay Foreman, another running back to consider. He's kind of been in the doghouse in Chicago, it seems, because he's been a healthy scratch the past couple weeks with Khalil Herbert and the rookie Roshan Johnson playing pretty well. Both of those guys got hurt on Thursday night. Herbert, yet another player set to miss multiple weeks with that ankle injury. We're not sure on the status of Roshan Johnson yet, but at the very least, we expect Deontay Foreman to be active moving forward and you know, most likely have a role in this backfield. And again, we're talking about a week where we've lost Achane, we've lost Connor, and we've lost Herbert. All three of those guys, fantasy starters on a weekly basis. So now we're scraping the bottom of the barrel here a little bit. And Deontay Foreman's not quite that far down, but definitely a guy you want to check your waiver wire for. And then even deeper, Eric Gray, the rookie for the Giants, looked like he probably overtook Matt Breida. We do expect, at least I think we should expect Saquon Barkley to be back soon. But Eric Gray is, I think we can say, probably the RB2 there for the Giants now. Jordan Mason got some garbage time against the Cowboys in week 5. And, you know, I would say just a reminder that he's the top backup there in San Francisco, at least at the moment. Elijah Mitchell dealing with an injury. And so Mason's a guy you want to make sure you have on your roster, especially if you already have Christian McCaffrey.
All really good names. And there are probably a lot of guys that are available too. I mean, these are pretty deep dives, but the state of the running back position, these dudes are important. And I would pick up every one of them if I possibly can. I mean, I don't think any of those guys should be ignored on the waiver wire.
Yeah, our buddy Scott Connor has a theory about running backs. He says any RB on a 53, essentially any running back on an active roster has at least some degree of fantasy relevance, and we're really finding out why right now. And now 5 weeks into the season, a couple tight ends to consider. We've seen Johnny Smith and Logan Thomas, a couple of veterans playing well lately. Thomas had a big game on Thursday night, and Johnny Smith continues to produce to the chagrin of Kyle Pitts managers. And then Noah Gray for the Chiefs. Of course, we saw the Kelsey injury. He came back, but they've got a short week. They play on Thursday. We'll see if Kelsey can go on Thursday. If not, Noah Gray, certainly worth an add, and, you know, maybe even worth a start, honestly, if Kelsey is out.
Real quick
Any
on those.
thoughts on any of those guys?
Yeah,
Yep.
I've always been a Jonnu Smith fan, and
Yeah.
I think the Atlanta coaching staff is as well. They had him, in Tennessee, of course. And yeah, he hurts Pitts, but I think they want those guys to be out there together. Now, Houston really, really sold out against the run, and Atlanta made him pay for it. I don't know if Ritter can do that time and time again, but that was a very unique game plan this past week. I just want people to realize that for that passing game. Logan Thomas, Eric Bieniemy's their offensive coordinator, and no one features a tight end like the Chiefs and Bieniemy. I could see Brock Bowers being their first round pick next year, but in the meantime, Logan Thomas is a starting tight end maybe in fantasy right now.
Yeah, I really think he is. Thomas, started off the season slowly, of course, missed a lot of last year. That's how he ended up on Dynasty waiver wires, and then took that nasty hit. I believe that was in week 2.
Oh, yeah.
Missed some time with that with that injury, but clearly back now. So again, if he's on your waiver wire, scoop him up. He won't be for long. That is going to do it for today's show. Please make sure you download and subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to follow the show at Locked On Dynasty. Follow Matt at Williamson NFL, and I'm Ryan, MC23. We'll be back next time with more Locked On Dynasty.